imagine that you went to your local pub for a pint, only to find it shut?
Not just closed for the day, but closed for good. Pubs in Britain are calling time for the last time at the rate of about 40 a day. Now, we could ignore this inconvenient truth, but that would be just a little bit like appeasement. And that would mean that one day we'd find ourselves alone and with no local. We need to be prepared. We need... Yes, madam?
Excuse me, but you didn't hear me.
No, I couldn't, sorry, it was the noise of the traffic. Our own pub. Fortunately, we have space for one here in the Man Lab, just south of the kitchen and west-northwest of the recreational area. What we will produce here is the beer-drinking equivalent of the Cold War bunker, a sort of post-nuclear bolt hole where we can pull pints in safety while the rest of the world is consumed by apocalyptically bad supermarket own-brand lager. My vision is something not too fuddy-duddy. No faux Victoriana nonsense. The Man Lab bar shall be born of shimmering stainless steel, bedecked with designer flock wallpaper. A groovy chap's grotto in which the bell never tolls. Seamless. It shall stand out as a welcoming beacon in the gathering publess gloom, a bastion for Britain's beleaguered and beerless. But even here, a pint has to be earned. To work. That noise you can hear is not the drill slipping in the end of the screw. It's because this one incorporates a small hammer action to drive the screw home. And some carpenters and cabinet makers will tell you that you should hammer certain types of screw in and not screw them in. The screw head, they will tell you, is for taking it out. However, blinded by beer goggles, we commit a dimensional faux pas. I blame Man Lab master builder, Simi. No, actually, Simi. This is actually, technically, about 3 mil too big here.
You're saying somebody cut it wrong? Yeah, that needs to be taken down a bit, doesn't it?
It's correct down there.
Good.
But down here, about 3 mil too big here. Needs to be there. Luckily, Tony has a router, a sort of power chisel, the perfect tool for ruining things more quickly. Fantastic. Right, the bar building progress report. We have to add shelves for our bottles of tequila and so on, and we were having a big debate about how to support them. You can get some chromium fittings from the DIY shop, and they're quite nice, but they're a bit poncy. We've invented something instead, and it's quite clever. They're little pieces of dowel which will screw into the uprights so that the shelf will rest on them. And if you're looking at it, you'll think, well, they've done that wrong because the hole's not in the middle. But deliberately so, because what it means, look, is that you have a handy little height adjuster. There's the low point. Turn it round a bit, it goes a bit higher. There's the high point there. How about that? Note to the nation. Some men, ordinary men just like you, have just done what you've been promising to do for several centuries. They have put up some shelves. And look at our reward here on Earth, our very own barrel of foaming ale. All that remains is to plumb in the pumps of our pleasure. I quite like the idea that the two pumps are to one side.
Right.
Somehow it's...
That's up to you.
What do we think, cameraman?
I would put them bang in the middle, but...
To the side.
Agreed. Which side? I think that side, because we've already put the barrel down there.
I think that side, because there's more light down there.
Light?
What's that got to do with it? We're going to turn the lights off.
Yeah, it's going to be dark. It's going to be moody.
Just, do none of you understand the basic principles of photography?
Yeah, but nobody goes to the pub that says, I'll have a pint, I hope it's well lit. So, that's the pump problem settled by the firm hand of leadership on the tiller of HMS Man Lab. More delirious bar build action later in the show. I'd like to take a moment to tackle a problem that is making men's lives a misery everywhere. I refer to the tie-it-yourself bow tie. Now here is what you do. You fold the tie exactly in half, fold it in half again, fold it in half a third time, open the lid of the bin and drop it in, because dress code is for an audience, frankly. But what about navigation? Surely that's important. As soon as man could sit on a floating log without falling off, he became a seafarer. He discovered new continents, built empires, and filled his ships with the bounty of distant lands before plotting a course homewards across thousands of miles of wild ocean. Not so long ago, that would have been very tricky, but these days, of course, it's easy because we have sat-nav. In fact, my telephone will tell me where I am, anywhere on the earth, to within a few yards. Plays tunes as well, and it takes pictures. It's amazing. But look what sat-nav has done to this descendant of Sir Francis Drake. It has turned him into a compliant navigational yes-man.
At the end of the road, turn left, then take the second right.
A passive, moon-faced dimwit of directional infidelity, with no real idea of how he got anywhere or where anywhere is.
You have reached your destination.
But what if they turned all that stuff off? How would you know where you were? My mission? To navigate the high seas, the English Channel anyway, in this antique sailing boat, without help from a digital dame of directional correction in a black plastic box. Instead, I'll be relying on only the charts and instruments of the ancient mariner. Leaving Deal at dusk, I'll traverse the treacherous Goodwin Sands, cross the perilous shipping lanes under cover of darkness, then turn south to collect a man from the beach at Sangatte.
La Belle France.
This man is known to me only by his code name, wine connoisseur Oz Clark. He has some contraband for me.
Chivigny is one of the rarest wines in France. I'm having that.
If I can locate him successfully, all this will be mine. Now, proper navigation is more than just mincing about with dividers. Before sat-nav, and certainly before the invention of things like radio, navigation was a baffling science that was refined over hundreds and hundreds of years of hard head-banging. And much valuable work was done here at the Royal Observatory, Greenwich. In fact, I'm standing on the meridian of Greenwich. It's a sort of datum line for establishing longitude around the world. But even this little problem took centuries to sort out. Knowing how far east or west a ship was defeated the scientific capabilities of early mariners. The Royal Navy became so desperate to crack the problem that it even considered a bizarre and complex theory suggested by an anonymous 17th century alchemist. And if it was good enough for the Navy, it's good enough for manland. The gist of it is this: you needed a dog. I have one here, this is Dodger. And you also needed something called the powder of sympathy. The powder of sympathy was a mysterious concoction with mystical powers, or so its inventor claimed. A weapon dipped into it would transmit the memory of a hurt it had caused to the wounded party anywhere in the world. The idea was this: you wounded the dog with something like the point of a knife, and then whenever you dipped that same knife in the powder of sympathy here in Greenwich, the dog would bark because it would remember the trauma wherever it was in the world. So it was a very simple way of communicating with a ship at sea. If the knife was dipped into the powder in Greenwich at noon, the ship's dog would alert the crew to the precise time back in London. By comparing this with the time of day on board ship, its position east or west of London could be worked out. It's brilliant. But does it work? Now, we're not going to wound Dodger in any way, but we are going to traumatise him quite badly in a more sort of humane and modern way. Sit. Greenwich precisely 2 hours into my journey. Dodger should then alert me that it's time to make the sharp right-hand turn across the shipping lanes and onwards to pick up the waiting Oz. Just in case the powder of sympathy turns out not to be a reliable way of navigating the channel, I will be taking along some basic charts and instruments just as a backup. First of all, we have to navigate the Goodwin Sands. They're very treacherous, and we have to avoid their shipwrecks, of which there are absolutely hundreds. We also have to consider things like the tides and the wind. So let's say the tide is coming this way, and let's say it's moving at 5 knots. A knot is a nautical mile an hour, so after 1 hour of sailing, the boat will have moved 5 nautical miles in this direction, so I have to steer slightly north to compensate for that. And then the winds in the channel, which are powering my sailing boat, tend to be in this sort of direction, so I will have to allow for those because they will tend to move the boat that way at the same time. So I've got 3 different things to try and resolve here into what we call a heading, so that we end up going in the direction we expected. Otherwise, if we're off, we'll hit the sands, we'll hit a shipwreck, we'll hit a supertanker, or whatever. Remarkably, the chart and the musically harassed dog are only the start of my navigational toolbox. The ancient mariners had some very sophisticated navigational aids available to them, such as this piece of wood. It's called a cross-staff, and basically you put it up to your eyeball on the pitching rolling deck of your ship, and then you slide this piece until the bottom's on the horizon and the top is, say, next to the sun, and then from here you can read off the angle between them. That gives you your latitude. It's brilliant. That's how they found America, actually, even though they didn't know it was there. Right, I'm ready, with every navigational aid known to pre-sat-nav man. A chart and a traumatised dog. Let's go and rescue the bald one from the beach in La Belle, France. Permission to put dog aboard, skipper. And now, Celebrity Man Task. Last week, in ManLab's campaign to highlight the hidden talents of our best-loved public figures, comedian Alexander Armstrong smashed his personal record for competitive flat-pack furniture assembly. This week, it's the turn of veteran newsman, the twinkle-toed John Sargent, to reveal his all-consuming passion. Today, he will reacquaint himself with his hidden hobby for the first time since 1968 and change the wheel on a car.
Right, time I started. That's the special signal.
He must beat a record he set in 1964 on the A3 near Guildford. 42 minutes and 46 seconds to change the offside front on a Triumph Mayflower.
Who left all this? Where is the spare tire? That's not mine.
This exclusive attempt will be overseen by me in the ManLab Monitoring Centre, where I can offer tips and encouragement via a two-way intercom. The rules are simple. Any schoolboy error carries a 5-minute penalty.
Right, nice little tire there. Amazingly, it looks as if it might fit.
John, I should point out that that is a space-saving, get-you-home spare wheel.
Oh, right. This is not very encouraging. No, we can't do it because this doesn't fit on.
John, are you familiar with locking wheel nuts?
No, I'm not. We never had these on cars.
Try the glove box.
Try the glove box. Wheel locking kit, that looks good.
I'm going to have to make that a schoolboy error. We pick up the action on 22 minutes. John's finally got to grips with his nuts, but only by defying HSE guidelines.
To make
Bending his back and not bending his legs. Give himself a nasty crick doing that at his age. He hasn't got it in the right place. That's another schoolboy error. Here is a jacking point. There is a small indentation where the jack should go. I'm afraid I'm going to have to award you a schoolboy jacking point.
Incorrect jacking point, Dad. It would have lifted perfectly well on this. No, I disagree with that. No, it's a good idea, but I don't think I can accept that.
I wasn't giving him the opportunity to accept it.
The main thing about jacks is to lift the car up. It would have gone up. It wouldn't have hurt the car. The fact they've got a little dent in it doesn't make it safer, doesn't make it more sensible. So I'm rejecting the whole of that marking system is completely wrong and unfair. Okay? Now then.
As the half hour comes up, the McEnroe of motor mechanics finds his form, jacking up and removing the offending wheel in a single balletic sylph-like movement.
And
He's done it. Sergeant can sense again the thrill of a youth spent on his knees in lay-bys.
so I do know now I've got to tighten this up quite hard as I'm going round.
I'm going to have to award you a schoolboy error for going around the wheel and not working across, which is technically more correct. Sorry. He may laugh, but that is the only way of ensuring that the wheel is correctly seated on the hub.
Well, there you are, you see, but if I'd remembered that, you'd have thought I'd been cheating.
Despite the racing clock, Sergeant's classic and masterful approach is edging him ever closer to smashing his personal best. But then, busy reflecting on his victory, he gets sloppy.
Right, here we go.
I'm sorry, John, I'm going to have to insist that you repack the boot before we can award you your badge.
Oh, no. All right. The wheel now won't fit in there because it's a different thing. So I'm going to have to put the wheel instead of the passenger, all right?
In the boot? What on earth is he doing?
Right. Okay, let's got rid of the tyre. Will we be able to close the boot properly? But, yes, we closed it.
Congratulations, sir. That is a good job done well.
Thank you.
Sergeant has shaved 8/100ths of a second off his 1964 time, making him a worthy recipient of our Pro Celebrity Man Task badge. Here is your champion, positively dancing with joy. Phew, what about that then? Anyway, let's move on to this. This is Ode to Joy, the theme from the final movement of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, played for you today by Charlie Hyland, who took Grade 1 oboe in 1995, but then put the instrument back in its case and completely forgot about it. And here is a very depressing statistic. Every year in Britain, around 73,000 people take Grade 1 on a musical instrument, but about 20,000 of those people take it no further. Where are they now? You see, I've always believed that a chap should be able to hold down a decent tune. So what we did was we put out an appeal to lapsed Grade 1ers with a view to forming our own Man Lab band. I was so confident of this idea that I went ahead and booked a venue for the Grade 1ers' public debut. Here it is, St. Martin in the Fields, one of the country's leading classical music venues. They've invited us to open one of their evening recitals in 2 weeks' time. I believe it was Felix Mendelssohn who described England as a land without music. But was he right? Let's find out. We have had the first bunch of respondents to our appeal. They are here in our hired studio for some auditions. Let's see how much latent talent there is in our land without music. Here's the door. Everyone who has turned up today has been able to locate his instrument, or at least owns a music stand.
Any musicians that were lapsed, that were feeling a bit bad about having let their instrument go and were thinking of getting back into it, I would say, get back into it.
And I thought, I'm just going to do this and see how it goes.
And I reached Grade 1 standard with some difficulty. I did much better at theory, but it just turned out that I wasn't very talented.
My assistant Victoria and I have decided to keep the auditions simple. Our hopefuls can play either a nursery rhyme or, if they're feeling confident, the national anthem.
The lips have to change. That's one thing that I really hadn't rumbled, is that how important the lips are, because that's what gives you the...
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Your own time, sir. apparently fairly committed, but possibly a danger to society as well. I have to be honest, you did lose me a bit slightly on the second line, and it began to sound quite medieval.
Things aren't going too well. What's worse, I think I've become the only person in Britain to have sympathy for Simon Cowell.
This is hopeless, I'm going to hang myself. Morning. And you are? You're Donal. You're a trumpeter, obviously. Excellent. And what are you going to play for us?
Well, I'm going to play Three Blind Mice, but I can't really read music.
Right. Well, you know how the tune goes, presumably. Okay, well, give it a bash in your own time.
Honestly,
I'm quite interested to see how you cope with the bit where they run after the farmer's wife. This is complicated, but could you give it a go anyway? I mean... Thank you, that's marvellous. I think of all the people in the country who are lapsed musicians from an earlier life, is this really the best we can come up with?
It was. But then, in walked Orpheus with his string-ed muse.
What would you like to play for us today?
Well, I'm going to give Oh My Darling Clementine a
Oh,
push, if
excellent.
that's all right.
Do you know what? All things are relative, but that was beautiful. Thank you, you're in.
Thank you, thank you.
Well, thank God for that. A hint of musicianship.
It's so sad to have a skill and drop it.
From then on, harmony flooded the room.
To be honest, you're one of the first people to come through the door to play a tune that we recognise, so congratulations.
5 hours in, however, my elation turned to suspicion. Things started to go a little bit too well.
So you have grade 1,
Yeah,
but you have some other grades.
up to 7.
So when you responded to the advert for people who had only achieved grade 1,
Or was it only achieved grade 1, was it?
well, that was the idea, to be honest. He's a musician. He's not a lapsed instrument owner. It's a shame, isn't it? But if we were going to form the grade 8ers, we'd effectively have a decent orchestra and nobody would be surprised. We're going to have to reject him for being too good.
Having dismissed the hopelessly talented interloper, we continued our quest for unrealised potential.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
He has actually got grade 1 and he's quite good. I think we'll have it. Anybody disagree? I found it strangely moving, that.
From inauspicious beginnings, it seemed our glorious vision for a musical nation reborn might just be within our grasp. After 8 hours of joy and despair, we finally had our lineup.
Well, I'll tell you what, since so many people are keen for some strange reason on playing God Save the Queen, why don't we get everybody back in, give them the full score, and let's just see what sort of a job they make of it. We might be surprised. Morning. Morning. Because I don't understand all that.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever, the Man Lab Grade 1ers. Suddenly, this whole Grade 1 idea sounded, quite literally, like a very bad one. That night, I dreamt that St. Martin in the Fields had fallen down. But when I checked the next day, sadly, it hadn't. All safe. Given that our debut is in 2 weeks' time, what I say next is purely for morale.
That was excellent.
My quest to resurrect the ancient skill of navigation and end the tyranny of sat-nav is underway. My aim? To locate Oz Clarke on a lonely French beach and smuggle him and his contraband back to Blighty. I've studied the stars and the tides, and I've got my charts and instruments. I've even brought along Dodger the dog, programmed to bark when it's time to change course.
Right, here's the plan. We've set off at dusk. We go through the Goodwin Sands while it's still light, because we need to be able to see for that. Then we'll cross the channel in the shipping lanes in darkness, arrive at Sangatte in darkness, and then we can head back before anybody notices us.
Within minutes of starting out, however, the cloud cover prevents any navigation using heavenly objects.
The wind's picking up a bit. You will notice it's quite foggy, and it will be dark soon, and we won't see any stars. So we've got the compass, we've got our charts, and arithmetic. We are sailing like Vikings. Now, this is interesting. This is what's called a grid-bearing compass. It's like a normal compass. It has a compass card, and that rotates as normal, but it also has this ring on the outside, also marked, which rotates. So if you put the heading you want, let's say it's 270 west at the top there, then when north and south on the card line up between these two things, which are called lover lines, you know you're heading 270. Brilliant, you get those in some aeroplanes as well. The real problem for me with sailing is that it's full of words that are not pronounced the way they're written. So you have the mainsail and the foresail and the midsail, and the ropes are called sheets unless they're the ropes that are called ropes. You go and see the coxswain or the boatswain on the forecastle, and you talk about the gunnels. I mean, I would call this a boat hook, but I expect if you're a sailor, it's a buttock.
Well, I've made the rendezvous, got the contraband. In this kind of weather, surely James can't miss France.
What Oz forgets is that the UK has not signed up to the single European weather, so on my side of the channel, there's a serious depression.
Right, here are the facts. This wind is almost up to force 6, forecast to rise to force 9. Bear in mind that we're only trying to cross the channel. Imagine what it would have been like for mariners back in the days when they crossed a whole ocean to America. That's why a lot of them drowned.
Cheers, old boy.
Look at this, the watter's over the gunnels and almost up onto the poop deck and the forecastle. I'll have to get the buttock out and deal with the bosun in a minute.
The brewing storm was bad enough, but then things took a turn for the worse. A vital component of our navigational kit proved to be faulty. Was Dodger telling us it was time to make the sharp right turn for France? Or was he just barking like a dog? With no way of telling, it was clear that the ancient alchemist theory was complete rollocks. With the Force 9 gale upon us, the whole mission lay in peril. Our last remaining hope was with taking readings from the magnetic compass to plot our route on the chart.
Right, there's our course. And if we use the plotter, roughly I can see, lining it up, that is somewhere in the region of 133 degrees through, which we have to convert to magnetic because of a thing called magnetic variation. True north is not in the same place as magnetic north, but the chart is drawn to true north, because otherwise the marking globe doesn't make any sense.
I'm sorry, guys, we're going to have to call this off because this is getting more and more beyond our limits to be sailing. It's starting to blow more and more. Seriously, this is going to build and build now. We're not going to be getting across the channel tonight. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. You can't go, you can't go.
What about the brandy?
Well, I'll buy a pint.
Actually, one of the sails has just gone down. This is a piece about navigation. It's not about trying to be heroic or drowning for your amusement. The skipper is the skipper. He's in command. He says no, so we can't do it. I'm very sorry.
Well, I'm on the beach, James. You asked me to be here. I am precisely here. Where are you?
The thing is, there are a lot of people out there I know who think that TV isn't very honest. It's all fakery and false jeopardy. And indeed, you might get that sort of thing on certain survival programmes, but you don't get it here in ManLab. We couldn't go, so we didn't go. That is exactly what happened. Anyway, we'll have another go next week. But in the meantime, this. Our noble quest to defy the tide of pub closures across the nation is nearing completion. After 2 days of carpentry, metalwork, and wallpapering, the ManLab bar is almost finished. We have our cask of ale, but before we can plummet into the pumps, we must relieve the build-up of excess pressure. Someone has to drive a wooden peg, called the spile, into the membrane in the top of the barrel. I volunteer. Sim.
Christ, it's like worried about this.
What, because of the pressure in there? What a bomb. It might go... The only reason I'm standing out here, viewers, is because there isn't room for both of us behind the bar. It's not because I'm scared of the barrel exploding. Not at all. Come on, Simmy.
All right.
You've got to belt the little peg into the ale of oldie England.
All right, here we go.
Oh, I can smell it from here, actually. Oh, that's fun. That's like when you go past a pub beer garden on a summer's day on your bicycle or your motorcycle and you just get this brief one inhalation. It's freshly gushing beer. It's absolutely fantastic. Ideally, we should wait 24 hours to let the contents of the barrel settle. But beer is like a siren to a randy sailor. And we are, in the end, only men. Come on, Simmy.
So, one fell swoop, I'm hoping.
Don't be mimsy about it, will you? Just...
Don't be mincy.
Yeah. Oh, that was what I like the sound of that.
She's a beaut.
Is it coming out of there?
Yes. Where's my peg?
Finally, and not before time, my cup runneth over. Crikey, that actually looks like beer.
Got a bit of a head on that. There you go, sir.
Oh. We shall drink this first pint in memory, really, of all pubs that have been forced to close down. It's excellent.
Is that very good?
It is really good. Well, Sim, I'd like to declare the ManLab bar open. Dreaming when dawn's left hand was in the sky, I heard a voice within the tavern cry, "Come, my little ones, and fill the cup, before life's liquor in its cup be dry." Are you involved in a petty squabble over something like the height of your hedge, or maybe planning regulations, or even some tedious aspect of office politics? If you are, keep watching. I've been involved for many weeks in a squabble with our executive producer, Will. I keep parking in his reserved space at our office, or so he claims. You see, look at this lot. From Will Dawes to James May, re-parking. It has been brought to my attention that, once again, I must remind you that company policy on parking states that, and so on and so on. And that's exactly the problem with these minor disputes. They drag on, they're inconclusive. If you're not careful, they degenerate into tiresome and expensive litigation, and then you end up with a lifetime of lingering resentment and debilitating, impotent fury. It's ridiculous. The whole thing could be sorted out before breakfast. With a duel. The classic scenario of posh blokes with pistols at dawn stems from the 1777 Irish Code Duello. This rulebook formalised duelling across Europe and North America. Now, I have here a copy of the Irish Code Duello, and it's quite confusing. Rule 1 has stuff about A tells B he is impertinent, B retort that he lies, A must make the first apology, B may explain away the retort by subsequent apology, and so on and so on. But I think the gist of it is, if I am to challenge Will to a duel, he must first be guilty of impertinence. Now, obviously, impertinence is a slightly outmoded concept these days, so it will have to be provoked. And I think the way to do this is by using the more genteel language of the 18th century, and indeed the telephone. So, here we go. Hang on, what? Yes. Right, bear with me a bit, because...
Hello?
Dawes, May.
Hi, James.
I put it to you, sir, that you are more than adequately versed in the sin of Onan, sir.
What are you talking about, you idiot?
Aha! Impertinence. Preliminaries out of the way, Rule 9 states that both sides must appoint a second to organise the time and the place. Under Rule 16, the challenged party chooses the weapons. Will has requested dueling pistols. This is a poor choice, as I've been practising. This is a dueling pistol, circa 1805. It's one of a pair. It's muzzle loaded. You have to load it from this end, not that end. It is smooth bore, i.e. there's no rifling, spirals cut in the barrel to spin the bullet and make it more accurate, and it only fires one shot at a time, a lead ball like that. And it was the duty of the seconds to ensure that the pistols were charged smooth and single, smooth-barreled, one shot. Anything else was cheating and terribly bad form. Mind you, there's nothing in the rules against roping in antique firearms expert Bill Harriman to give me some tips.
In goes powder.
Piece of wadding.
There's your patch.
Right, I can start to push it.
Seated home.
This can't go off because there's no percussion cap on there.
No, it's also at half cock.
And it's also at half cock, which is where we get the expression half cock from. Cap on nipple.
Bring it to full cock.
Full cock. Two hands or one?
I think you'll be fine with one.
Even as a cardboard cutout, Will and his wagging finger are very annoying. Sir, the tongue that rolled so roundly in thy head. Assuming Mr. Dawes has a heart, I got him right in it. Dueling then, as now, was frowned upon by the authorities. They were often fought at first light at locations well away from the eyes and ears of the local magistrate.
Well, we're in a field, that's all I know.
Under Rule 17, the challenger decides the distance at which shots will be exchanged. I've chosen 20 paces to give the new boy a sporting chance.
Gentlemen, as you know, I have the conduct of this affair of honour. Mr. May, Mr. Dawes has said that he wishes to apologise to you. If he does so, sir, will you accept that as satisfaction?
No, sir.
There can be no apology. I require satisfaction or death.
Very well, gentlemen. If you are resolved to fight, then so be it.
Mr. Television Executive clearly hasn't read Clause 2, Rule 5. The only way he can stop the duel now is to invite me to thrash him soundly with a cane while he begs my forgiveness. And that never happens in TV. Unless you're Frank Boff, allegedly.
Mr. May, cock your pistol, please, sir. Mr. Dawes, cock your pistol, please, sir. Take aim. You will fire on the signal.
Let us focus now on solving a problem affecting a small yet vital area of the Man Lab. You know how it is. You've got the next 5 minutes all planned out. You can read a paper, pick your nose. You've just got started. And then you glance around and to your horror, you've run out of bog roll. For some reason, even though we may have done this many hundreds of thousands of times, you never think to look. So what we're wondering is some sort of alarm that sounds if you put the seat down and there's no or very little bog roll left, but doesn't go off if you put the seat down and there's plenty of bog roll left, i.e. it's a no bog roll left alarm system. The technicalities of this is we need some sort of switch system that can distinguish, so that is off and that is on, ready to ring the buzzer when the seat goes down. You need a switch that makes a circuit when that's gone from that to that.
Yeah, but that's still got enough.
Well, okay, but a bit less than that. That's like, you know, the fuel warning light on your car. It's not over yet, but it will be soon if you're not careful. You wouldn't set out on a long journey in the car with the fuel warning light on. You wouldn't sit down for a vigorous number 2 with only that much bog roll left. It just could be risky. And we have to make it a rule of the Man Lab. It is contrary to the normal rule, I know, but you leave the seat up. Because men go for a wee-wee more often than they go for a poo-poo. That's just a fact, isn't it?
Fact.
And women definitely do, because they only go for a poo about once every 2 weeks, don't they, as far as I can make out. I mean, they can go on holiday and they think, oh, I don't like the bogs in Spain, I just won't have a poo until we get home. And that's like 2.5 weeks later. How do they do that? While I pondered the mystery of womankind, Sid began to turn our vision of the world's first intelligent bog roll into reality.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
So, when the switch is activated, the alarm goes off, we'll have a flashing red light. And the plan is, we found this klaxon noise, which we are now going to put on to the alarm.
With the alarm set and the electronics tested, it was time for the first human trials. When you put the seat down, it triggers a switch which sets off the klaxon and the red flashing light, but not if there is bog roll on the holder, because that lifts up this lollipop switch and breaks the circuit. However, if there is no bog roll left, that switch is down, the circuit is complete, and the alarm goes off. Now, we do have an opportunity to test this for real right now, because I happen to know that Dan, one of our editors, is on his way down from upstairs to have a number 2. So let's see if he's paying attention. Let's see, in fact, if our alarm will save him from one of man's worst traumas. To gain access to the bog, Dan has to raise our specially designed pneumatic railway bridge. And you must remember to lower it again after entering, or else the train can't get through. That can only mean one thing. Someone is in the kludgy and in distress, needs bog roll, Depart, here it goes, and I hope he remembers, even though he's in distress, to press the bing bong for me to stop the train. Bong when running, stop. So there you go, once again, mankind's lot in life improved by organised and efficient working practices. Anyway, if you thought that was interesting, wait until you see this. Earlier on, in a counterblast against today's obsession with settling minor disputes through litigation, I revived the lost skill of duelling. However, before I could obtain satisfaction, today's obsessive health and safety litigation intervened. Following the earlier incident, the health and safety officer has said that we may no longer use our 19th century pistols and that we must now fight a more symbolic duel. That is what we're going to do using a French version of the pistol duel known as the duel à volante. Here's how it works. Two lines are marked on the field of honour 20 paces apart. The combatants start from a position 15 paces beyond these lines, in my case over here. On the command, which is the drop of the handkerchief, the combatants begin to walk forwards towards their lines. They may stop and take aim at any point, but they may not fire until they reach their line. Now this means you can walk quickly and you can enjoy the advantage of firing first, but if you do that and you miss, you have to stand your ground until the other man reaches his line and enjoys the advantage of firing from closer range. That's what makes it exciting. Even though we're not allowed real guns anymore, our duel must continue until we have satisfied Rule 22, which states any wound sufficient to agitate the nerves and necessarily make the hand shake must end the business for that day. That's why we're using paintball guns. I'm told they really hurt. If you've suffered from impertinence at home or at work and it wasn't your fault, why not get in touch? Our team of experts will try to help you achieve satisfaction. No win, no fee.
Write to us at manlab@bbc.co.uk.
And please remember to mark your subject line, "Damn you, sir, I will run you through." Good night.
What you will with a drunken sailor, what you will with a drunken sailor, what you will with a drunken sailor, early in the morning, hooray, and up she rises, hooray, and up she rises, hooray.